was something that sometimes I was at school and thinking that I had to go home and see my mother again, and she has to talk about the same thing again. It really scared me, and trying to think the way to solve my problem, or trying to see the way to kill myself.
A new coalition, including the Episcopal Church and the Federation of Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, or PFLAG, is seeking to reduce the number of gay and lesbian youth who each year attempt and often complete suicide. According to a PFLAG spokesman, one of the primary causes of gay teen suicide is homophobia. In the third of a 5-part series on gay and lesbian youth, WAMU's Nick Clark explores homophobia, suicide, and 2 federally sponsored studies that some say have been suppressed.
But I remember leaving the group one Saturday and going back to my room and closing the blinds and putting on my pajamas and just curling up in a corner. And all I wanted to do was not feel anything. Even though I had people to talk to, I didn't really have anyone to express anything with, like quote-unquote normal people do.
Al, who asked that his real name not be used, is 20, and though he's not attempted suicide, he has thought about it a lot. And although most of us think about suicide at one time or another, kids, like Al, are much more likely to act on those thoughts. In fact, according to one study, gay and lesbian kids are anywhere from 3 to 6 times more likely to attempt suicide than other kids of their own age.
The problem is that there is a widespread antipathy towards lesbians and gay men.
Urvashi Vad is the executive director of the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, a Washington-based political action and lobbying organization.
And that hostility often translates in terms of saying that kids should be told, no, you shouldn't even think about being gay, that counselors and teachers should come down hard against that kind of thing, instead of sitting with a kid and going through the issues that they're facing. These kids are killing themselves because they have nowhere to turn. And that's exactly where this Health and Human Services report on youth suicide comes in.
That report has been totally disowned by the Secretary of HHS, Louis Sullivan.
William Dannemeyer is a Republican congressman from California who has gained prominence for what he calls his war against homosexuals. Last year, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services published a 4-volume report on youth suicide. Since 1960, the suicide rate among young Americans has tripled. The preliminary report identified homosexuality as a critical risk factor for youth suicide.
My heart goes out to any family that's touched by suicide. It's a tragedy. But you see, American culture in the last 20 years has experienced a war, and we have evidences of that war going on. So much of the media believes that homosexuality there's nothing wrong with it.
Gays say that Dannemeyer is a good representative of institutionalized homophobia. In fact, the congressman gives voice to the conflict that is at the root of homophobia and, some say, gay teen suicide. Like Dannemeyer, many believe homosexuals are made, not born. What they believe is that homosexuals have the ability to change. What they lack is the moral will to make that change. Congressman Dannemeyer promptly sent letters to Health and Human Services Secretary Louis Sullivan and President Bush, demanding that they denounce the section on gay youth.
I have a copy of a letter here as we speak, dated October 13, 1989, where Secretary Sullivan distinctly rejects what you've just referred to as representing an official position of the United States government, Health and Human Services.
In which he said he shared Congressman Dannemeyer's concern about quote-unquote traditional family values.
The National Gay and Lesbian Task Force's Urvashi Vad believes, as do most homosexuals, that homosexuality is natural. And although the majority of the population is heterosexual, homosexuals represent a small but normal and significant portion of the population. The tragedy is gay kids are the victims of the life-threatening battle between nature and nurture.
You know, which I don't understand, first of all, what traditional family values have to do with this problem. We're talking about a high incidence of youth suicide among all our youth, and we're talking about a particularly high incidence among kids who are gay or lesbian or who are struggling to define their sexual orientation. Now, I don't think it's a question of morality at that point. It's a question of intervention.
In the end, the reports on gay and lesbian teen suicide were squelched. Neither the papers nor their recommendations made it into the final report. Tomorrow, minorities within minorities. As one youth put it, when you're young and black in a white society, when you go home, at least your family is black. But when you're young, black, and gay, there's no one to go home to.